My girlfriend, who is 23 years old, and I, who am 24 years old, have been dating for over a year now. Before me, she was in a relationship with her ex-boyfriend, who is 25 years old, for 4 years, and they broke up in April 2023. She and I started dating in July 2023. Lately, I've been feeling uncomfortable with how much her ex is still a part of her life, and I'm unsure if my feelings are valid. At the start of our relationship, I agreed for them to meet for closure when his dog got sick, but I assumed that would be the last time they talked. Since then, he has texted her every month, sometimes about random things, sometimes about life updates, and sometimes about their past relationship. I told her I was uncomfortable with it, and she reassured me that they would keep things direct. But by winter 2023, I expressed that I feel uncomfortable with them talking and asked her to stop talking to him because the communication is more frequent now. They've already had closure talks 3 times in person, including 2 before we started dating. Somewhere along the way, the boundary slipped, and now they text monthly again. We had a conversation tonight in which I told her I don't like how her ex keeps popping up randomly, especially since he said all he needed was one final talk back in September 2023. I was under the assumption that this would be the last contact, as they even exchanged their photos of each other. Despite that, he still texts her practically monthly out of the blue about new life events, many of which they apparently discussed during their relationship. In the fall of 2023, he dated another girl, which they discussed during their presumed final meeting. But he would talk down about her to my girlfriend as if it was just a long-term hookup, and made crude jokes about getting back together with my girlfriend and her appearance. My girlfriend says they're friends, and he was a major support system for her during 4 transformative years of her life. Because of that, she insists she can't cut him off, not even temporarily, which troubles me because I don't believe there's ever been a proper cooling-off period between them. It's not that I don't trust my girlfriend, but I have concerns about this guy. He appears to be disrespectful of our relationship, and I'm uncomfortable with how often he comes up in conversation. My girlfriend is adamant that he doesn't have any feelings for her anymore, but she doesn't explicitly remember him ever telling her that, and she refuses to ask him directly. I've asked her for a temporary cooling-off period so I can feel more secure, but she refuses. I don't see what she gains from staying in contact, especially since we're planning to move across the country next year. When I asked if she sees herself hanging out with him in the next 5 years, she said she would, which I find concerning. She's even shown me texts from when we first started dating that were pretty intense and low-key emotionally. Hurtful on his part. And she's told me stories about their relationship that don't paint him in the best light, like how he wouldn't wash his sheets for her when she asked, or how his brother would speak poorly about her. Now that tone seems to have changed, and she is saying the breakup was amicable, which I guess is a technicality. I mean, the guy cheated on her by going on Tinder and talking to other girls. I don't doubt my girlfriend's feelings for me, but this whole situation is troubling. She also brings him up regularly, telling me she needs to remember to text him back or updating me on his life, like how his dog was sick or that he started graduate school. I know these things seem small, but it makes me uncomfortable every time. When I bring up how uncomfortable this makes me, she insists they were friends throughout their relationship and that she can't see herself cutting him off, even temporarily. It's frustrating because I've only asked her to stop talking to one person, and I think this situation is unique. Now she says her boundary is that she doesn't want a partner who controls who she can talk to. I'm unsure if I'm crossing a line by asking her to stop talking to her ex. Hers, even if it's just for a temporary break. There are also other things about him that trouble me. He's made crude jokes when they've met up, and my girlfriend has mentioned that she had to ask him to delete her intimate photos, to which she doesn't even believe he did. He's talked to her multiple times about what went wrong in their relationship. When she told him we were together, he screamed at her during the call, ended it abruptly, and ignored her afterward for weeks until they started talking again. They text monthly, but that's largely because my girlfriend isn't on her phone often and doesn't text many people outside of me and her family. I'm really struggling to figure out if my feelings are unreasonable or if these are legitimate concerns. I know this is a tale as old as time where advice may vary. Personally, I am not in contact with any of my exes and do not keep friendships or contact with exes. I simply find it disrespectful. What should I do about my girlfriend's ongoing communication with her ex, which makes me uncomfortable? Any advice would be appreciated. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. She still clearly has feelings for him and is purposely leaving the door wide open for him. So, what if his dog died? That is his new girlfriend's issue, not yours. If you want to retain any dignity, I would say you need to have her make a choice between you or him once and for all, but it sounds like she already has. Comment 2. She has made her feelings clear. The ex will not be cut off even after your request. Sorry, that says a lot about your relationship. The question is, do you want to continue, given she obviously values the friendship with the ex more? Personally, I would end it. It is not worth the trouble. Now, for the update. 1 week later, I found out that my girlfriend met her ex for lunch at a local diner. She casually mentioned it while we were watching TV, like it was no big deal to her. I mean, how is this normal for anyone? So, I asked for details about the lunch, trying to keep my tone neutral. She explained that they talked about mutual friends and how life has been treating them. That's it? Just catching up on the latest gossip like old pals? Then she casually mentioned that her ex was having a hard time with his job. And what did she do? She suggested that he just needed someone to talk to, and she was being supportive. Supportive? Really? So here I am, trying to process this whole situation, and I decide to bring it up again, hoping for a more serious discussion. We sit down at our kitchen table, and I start to explain my feelings. She interrupts me and insists that she doesn't have any romantic feelings for her ex. Well, good for her, but what about the rest of us? I mentioned the crude jokes her ex made, and she just waved it off like it was nothing, saying it was just teasing. As you can imagine, the conversation got heated, and so did our voices. She accused me of being controlling and not trusting her. Okay, maybe I was a little controlling, but can you blame me? A few days later, we went to my parents' house for a family dinner. My parents asked about our plans to move, and she casually mentioned that we were still figuring it out. My mom then suggested that we should consider getting married before the move. My girlfriend laughed it off, but I could see her discomfort. My younger sister brought up her ex-boyfriend who moved away. My girlfriend suddenly grew quiet and glanced at me. I could feel a shift in the room, and it was not good. After dinner, my girlfriend pulled me aside and asked why we couldn't have a normal dinner without exes being mentioned. She stormed off to the bathroom again, just like before. Frustrated, I stepped outside for some fresh air, trying to cool off. I checked my phone and saw a text from her ex's number, but it was sent to her instead. What's this now? When I went back inside, the family was scattered, and I confronted her in the kitchen. She tried to brush it off as nothing serious, but I demanded to see the message. We ended up arguing, and she finally showed me the text, which was an inappropriate meme. She defended herself, claiming it was a joke and that she didn't find it funny anyway. So, if it didn't make her laugh, why keep it around? I stormed out of the house, needing space to think about our future. Later that night, I decided to take action and sent her ex a message from my own phone. I wrote a blunt message about needing to respect boundaries and stop the jokes. The next morning, my girlfriend saw the message and was furious with me. She called me, but I didn't answer. We went 2 days without speaking. She finally showed up at my apartment, demanding to talk it out. The conversation got intense fast, and she accused me of ruining her friendships. I stood firm, saying her ex had crossed lines repeatedly. Then, just like that, our argument ended suddenly when she revealed she had been thinking about moving back to her hometown. I told her I wouldn't chase after her if she chose her ex over our relationship. She stormed out, leaving me with a sense of finality. I slammed the door behind her. Edit: this incident led to a major turning point. After she stormed out, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I spent a few days processing everything and realized I couldn't ignore the red flags any longer. I reached out to a friend for support and talked things through, ultimately deciding to end the relationship. I sent her a message explaining my decision, and she called me, upset. We talked for a while, and she admitted her ex's friendship was more important to her than our relationship. I knew then I had made the right choice. She moved back home in early November, and I am currently focusing on myself. Am I the idiot for letting my sister's toxic behavior destroy her marriage while I watched helplessly? They used to live with us around 3 to 4 years ago for a year, and it was great. They got married and moved out, and then their rent went up. So we just decided to ask them if they wanted to move back. For some context, it is technically my wife's father's house that she inherited, and it has a whole section of the house that we do not live in. So they live there, and it is really nice, honestly, to have them there. But ever since they moved back, things are different. He is largely the same, but my sister is seemingly just more angry. She gets angry or frustrated at seemingly everything he does now. It feels like she is constantly turning relatively normal conversations with him into arguments. She is also criticizing his hobbies a lot. She hates him playing video games or watching sports or drinking beer, which in turn affects me because I am usually the one he is doing those things with. She acts as if him doing those things at all is some sign he is lazy. And it would be one thing if he did those things constantly, but he does not at all. He does them quite rarely. And it is especially frustrating because of the hypocrisy. He works as a teacher, she walks dogs maybe 3 hours a week. I have seen her go a full week without walking a single dog. And besides that, they both share a pretty even amount of chores. I would argue that he often does more. It is almost like she has this knee-jerk reaction to him doing things that she does not like. It is just a bit frustrating to watch this all. My wife agrees. It actually makes her pretty angry at my sister at times. She thinks she gives married women a bad name. And all this stuff about how she has never worked a day in her life and is entitled and sheltered. I think my wife especially hates this whole situation because my wife is a very hardworking person, and it makes her a bit mad to see my sister lay around the house all day. But my wife explicitly does not want to bring it up or make it public how she feels. She thinks this is my territory because it is my sister and my childhood friend. She is not wrong about that. I do not expect her to really get involved. I want to talk to my sister about the way she is acting. This is not like her, but at the same time, it is like her, because this is exactly what happened with her ex-boyfriend. She was great at first, then came the changes. The random arguments starting, the constantly criticizing his hobbies and clothes and food choices, constantly implying he is lazy and immature. It is almost like she hits a point in a relationship and becomes desperate to forcibly grow up her man into some weird, full-grown masculine ideal she has built in her head. And she does that by shaming and berating anything she views as immature. I know this sounds silly, but she watches a lot of reality television, and I feel like that type of content is implanting this mindset into her. I am not sure what to do. Again, I want to talk to her and basically confront her about this, because this is not okay. I do not want to use the A word, but at times it feels like that. He is clearly dismayed and depressed at this, even if he will not admit it. It is hard watching him be some kind of punching bag. What do I do? What do I say? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. How much time do they need to save? You may have the space, but you don't have the privacy. This is stuff you shouldn't be involved with. If they have made a mistake with this marriage, they need to figure it out together. At this moment, you know too much about their situation. Everyone has also changed and now has new ambitions. It's fair to say that you won't have that space permanently available. So if you want to talk to them, perhaps discuss a timeline for when they would be ready to move and what needs to happen for that. Your sister sounds like she is getting stuck in a rut and needs some help getting out of it. A goal she is interested in would create some inspiration. Comment 2. Considering it is the original poster's house they are living in and they are subjected to it every day, it is their business to a certain degree. You cannot police your sister's relationship, but they have a right to a harmonious home. It needs to be addressed when it's affecting other people. even something along the lines of, "Hey, you guys need to keep the drama to yourselves or to a minimum if you're going to continue living here." Now for the update. I'm not sure how much more I can take of this. My sister's marriage is falling apart, and I don't know what to do. I wish I could stay out of it, but my sister is asking me for help. A few days after I posted, we had a family dinner for our dad's birthday. My sister brought her husband, and he seemed a little more withdrawn than before. Like, he was pretty quiet the whole time. I noticed that right away. During dinner, my sister made a snide comment about her husband's portion size. Like, really? We're at a birthday dinner, right? And this is what we're doing? This turned into a huge fight. I mean, it got loud. The husband tried to defend himself, saying he had a long day at work, but my sister cut him off. I looked around the table, and everyone was just awkwardly glancing at each other like, do we intervene? What do we do here? My sister's anger escalated when the husband mentioned a recent video game he enjoyed. She went off on him for wasting time on video games. I don't remember exactly what she said, but she was really going for it. I tried to lighten the mood, just making a joke about how everyone has their hobbies, but she snapped back at me too. It was like the only thing she was missing was a full-on meltdown. My wife leaned over and quietly mentioned that the nonstop criticism was getting unbearable to watch. I had to agree. It was pretty bad. After dinner, the husband silently packed up his plate and went to the living room, leaving my sister fuming at the table. I went to check on him and found him sitting alone on the couch, staring blankly at the TV. He expressed some gratitude for my concern and even said he felt trapped. Like, wow, it's that bad? I went back to the dining room and my sister was still fuming. There was this uncomfortable silence hanging in the air that was super awkward. The following week, we had a family barbecue and the criticism continued. This time, it was about her husband's choice of drinks. I mean, come on, can we not even enjoy a burger and a beer without a fight breaking out? My wife finally had enough and confronted my sister, saying it wasn't fair to call out her husband in front of everyone. My sister shot back that she was just trying to help him be better. I don't know what that even means. This caused some tension among the family for sure. The husband left the barbecue early, saying he had a headache. My sister didn't look too happy about that. A few days later, I learned from my mom that my sister was planning a surprise getaway for her husband to fix their relationship. I voiced my concern about this to my mom, saying it would be like putting a Band-Aid on a huge problem. My mom agreed, but said it was my sister's decision. My sister dismissed my concerns, saying it was just a fun trip and that I was being overly dramatic. On the day of the getaway, my sister called me, upset that her husband had backed out last minute. I found out that the husband had planned a different trip with friends instead, so my sister blew up at him. I overheard her screaming at him over the phone about his lack of commitment. He ended the call, looking visibly shaken. I felt like I had to step in. I approached him, and he revealed he was seriously considering leaving her due to her behavior. I was shocked. I tried to convince him to work things out, saying they needed to communicate. He agreed to think about it, but mentioned that my sister refused to acknowledge any issues. The next family gathering was for a holiday, and my sister seemed even more on edge. During a toast, she drunkenly blamed her husband for their problems. It was a massive rift in the family. My wife confronted my sister again, this time demanding she take responsibility for her actions. My sister reacted defensively, accusing my wife of being unsupportive. I felt the tension rise and tried to diffuse the situation, but it only made things worse. The husband left the gathering early, and my sister followed him outside, shouting. I watched helplessly as the family dinner turned into a scene of chaos. My sister reached out to me afterward, asking for support. A month later, the husband officially moved out, leading to a family divide. I learned that my sister was now blaming her husband for everything. She refuses to take any responsibility, which is just sad. I don't know what to do anymore. To answer a few questions, my sister's husband is a kind person who deserves better. My sister has always been a bit demanding, but this behavior is new and much more intense. Am I the idiot for wanting to escape my overbearing mother-in-law's grip on our lives? My wife, who is 31 years old, and I, who am 32 years old, are in the early stages of pregnancy. We just received a positive test, and I'm excited for us. We've been together for 12 years and married for 1 year. Between the two of us, we will have such a cozy little family. We've had some issues deciding between living in the big city, Toronto, or a smaller hometown, which is near family and hometown friends. At the moment, we have landed on a long-distance relationship as she is open to me transitioning back to the hometown. I still haven't come to terms with leaving the city, but I'll get there. That's fine. Recently, I have been under an awful lot of dread and have observed how many of my wife's big life decisions are heavily influenced by her mother, who endlessly attempts to get her way. She's loving and supportive with her words, but paranoid and possessive in her actions. I've had conversations about this with my wife regarding how many of her big decisions are discussed with her mother first, then with me, and I have made it clear that that's not okay, but I'm not sure what else to say. When it comes to me, I can handle myself, but I have a lot of dread toward raising a family near her. She will try to dictate the children's religion and education. I'm very much against large corporations, and she swears by them, buying endless gifts, decorations, and random things, not at all conscious about the type of food intake. I've seen how her sister has raised her child around their mother, and her child is wonderful, but the husband vents to me about the process, and every time I see him, he looks defeated. Unfortunately, he does little to change the situation. This situation feels difficult to navigate considering how close my wife, her sister, and their mother are, but they fuel each other's anxiety. The father helps around, but doesn't have much say in anything. We are fortunate to be financially stable, so this is all about emotional barriers and principles. I should add that I'm giving up living in Toronto to be close to both of our families as well and away from the hub of my work. I will still need to travel for work, and already I've received questions about working remotely, etc. My family has also brought up some concerns about her possessiveness over family matters. They're not perfect either, but at least they respect us to make our own decisions. Question: how can I set boundaries to keep my little family together without her mother being too involved? What else can I say to my wife to plead my case? She knows that the more her mother is involved, the less happy I am. I want to be confident in my actions moving forward. I am fulfilled by my work and the environment, and don't want to change that at this stage in my life. Is that reasonable? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. How many of her big decisions are discussed with her mother first, then with me, and I have made it clear that that's not okay, but I'm not sure what else to say. Excuse me, but this is not for you to say. She should go to whoever she feels comfortable going to. If you don't like her mother or family and the advice she receives, that is nobody's problem but yours. Let me repeat that. This is your problem, not your wife's. Your challenge is becoming okay with how your wife has decided to live her life, not trying to change her. Because guess what? She's not going to stop listening to her mother, especially because her mother knows more about raising a baby than you do. Comment 2. I'm going to ask this as gently as I can. Are you sure she hasn't already left you? It sounds like she's made a pretty clear choice about which relationships in her life are the highest priority. The first thing to accept is that regardless of how in or out she is emotionally, she is not coming back. That leaves you with two choices. Stay where you are and accept that you're future co-parents and no more, or go be with her and build from there. You need to strengthen your relationship with your wife before you worry about her mother's influence on your child. Now, for the update. Just under 2 days after my last post, I talked with Olivia about the move. We were in the living room, surrounded by our packed boxes. I mentioned how I felt pushed aside by her mom's influence. Olivia got defensive and said her mom was just trying to help. I tried to say that I wanted us to make our own decisions. Things got heated when I brought up her sister's situation. Olivia said I was comparing her to her sister, which she thought was unfair. I backed off, deciding to give her some time to chill. The next day, Olivia texted me, saying she was going to her mom's for a few days. I didn't reply, thinking maybe it was better to give her space. That evening, my parents invited us over for dinner, hoping to ease the tension. They had planned a special meal to celebrate our upcoming baby. During dinner, my mom casually asked about our plans for the move. I mentioned Olivia was at her mom's, trying to play it cool. My dad was worried about her mother's control over our lives. After dinner, I got a call from Olivia's mom asking if I had seen her. I told her I hadn't and asked what was going on. She said Olivia was feeling overwhelmed and needed support. A few days later, I went to pick up Olivia from her mom's house. I noticed the tension when I walked in. Olivia's mom was in the kitchen, and she looked surprised to see me. I asked if Olivia was ready to go home, but her mom hesitated. She suggested we all sit down to talk about the move together. We sat on the couch, and Olivia walked in, looking tense. The conversation quickly turned to how I wasn't supporting Olivia's needs. I tried to explain my side, but it felt like I was talking to a wall. The discussion got out of control, with accusations flying. I decided to leave the room, feeling overwhelmed. I overheard Olivia telling her mom that maybe I wasn't the right partner. I stood frozen outside the door, not knowing how to react. Eventually, I walked back in, and we all sat in silence. I suggested we take a break from the conversation and talk about it later. The next day, I got a text from Olivia saying she was moving back home. Just as I was about to leave, her mom called me aside. She suggested we think about a family counseling session. I was surprised by the suggestion, but agreed to think about it. Mini update: Olivia moved back home with her mom for a few weeks. We talked about going to counseling, and I agreed because I wanted to work things out. I also realized I needed some support. My parents suggested I see if I could find a counselor familiar with cross-cultural relationships. After some searching, I found one. My parents even came with me to the first session. It felt good to talk things through with someone who understood our situation. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.